And I remember hanging it up on the wall, and I can see that in my mind's eye. And I went out of the front, and everyone was completely riveted to the floor, you know, just standing there, regardless, with sweat streaming down them.
Jimi Hendrix arrived in England in the summer of 1966, determined to make it big. With his afro hair, flowery shirts and army jackets, the young black American was the most exotic musician in town. When Kathy met him at a nightclub, she was smitten. At the time, she was just 20 and trying out jobs like hairdressing.
Well, he had a very soft American accent because he'd been brought up in Vancouver partly. And when he first came, he was nearly 24, and you know, his hair was in good condition, and he just looked unusual. He looked stunning, really. I was suitably impressed.
Fair to say that his chat-up lines were, you know, not perhaps the most original thing in the world.
No, no. He said, "I think you're beautiful." He whispered in my ear, "Flattery will get you everywhere."
But with enough charisma to be able to carry that sort of slightly corny line off.
It sounds corny coming from me, but it wasn't corny coming from him.
Within hours, Jimi Hendrix told Kathy she was now his girlfriend. But the next morning, they were interrupted by another woman.
She burst in at about 11 o'clock in the morning, screaming and swearing and calling him a bastard and everything. And she grabbed the guitar, which was laying on top of the case, and lifted it and was poised to bring it down on our heads while we were in bed. I dived under the covers and halfway under him, and he said, "Put it down." Anyway, she turned round, took the guitar, stormed out, and we got out of bed and watched her leave.
Hendrix eventually got his guitar back and moved in with Kathy. Both former runaways, the couple had a lot in common.
Jimmy was very funny and very entertaining. I had a friend there, Brenda, who just had a baby, and I took him round to visit, and he bought the baby a little toy pony, and he didn't have very much money. I thought that was quite sweet.
And also, he seems to have loved board games, sitting down to play Risk and Monopoly.
Yeah, we used to play games. There was another one. You put a piece of plastic sheeting on the floor, and it's got coloured rings, and you put your hands on two and your feet on two, and then you've got to somehow work your way across it.
Twister.
Of course, it would always fall over. And everybody used to make fun of us because of the way that I dressed compared to him. Jimmy liked the flamboyant clothing. I never did wear it. I never wore. I was always very conservative in my clothes.
He would take the pink boa and you would take...
Yes, and I wouldn't wear one.
But Kathy and Jimmy also had plenty of rows, mostly over Kathy's cooking. It was one of these arguments that inspired a famous Hendrix song.
I was doing mashed potatoes, and he comes along and he tastes them with a fork, and he said, "Oh, they're all lumpy," and that was it. And he started telling me how to do it, and I knew he couldn't cook, and that's how the argument started. I can't remember what was said, but it ended up sort of me screaming and shouting, and plates on the floor, you do it yourself, you know, marching out. And I got a taxi, and I went over to my friend Angie's place and stayed the night, and when I came back, he'd written the song.
Somewhere a queen is weeping. Somewhere a king has no wife. And the wind, it cries, Mary.
And this song is The Wind Cries Mary. Why?
The Wind Cries Mary.
Why Mary?
It's my middle name. And when Jimmy was feeling like it, he used to call me Mary. Turned out to be a really nice, sad song, so he was obviously a bit upset.
After his triumphant Marquee Club gigs, Hendrix released his first album, Are You Experienced? The Wind Cries Mary and other songs such as Purple Haze became worldwide hits, and his stage show became more and more flamboyant. He began to play the guitar with his teeth, and sometimes set it on fire. Within a year, Hendrix was an international superstar, but that put his relationship with Kathy under strain.
all of these hangers-on sort of appeared, and dodgy people. They had an aggressive edge to them. He started to look really rough. His hair was breaking off. He looked as if in 2.5 years he'd aged 10. I mean, he was okay with me, but he was getting nasty with other people. But he was getting out of hand, smashing up hotel rooms. And I didn't really like that atmosphere. I think that was probably, the beginning of the end.
By the summer of 1970, the couple had split up, and Jimi Hendrix was in deep trouble with drink and drugs. On September the 17th, Kathy and Jimi met by chance. A day later, Hendrix died after choking on his own vomit.
Well, I bumped into him in the Kensington Market. He came up behind me and sort of squidged me. And he said, "I'm staying at the Cumberland Hotel. Why don't you come over later?" And I said, "Yeah, I might." And that was it. Never saw him again. Next morning, he was dead. Terrible.
So when you look back now, you must wish that you'd gone round?
Well, I did for a while. To begin with, I thought to myself, well, if I'd have gone, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe this would, of course, I realised that it probably wouldn't have made any difference. We'd probably have had a drink, a chat, I'd have left, and he'd have still gone and done the same thing that happened that night. Although I wish that I had gone round, but I didn't, and that's all there is to it.
Kathy Etchingham has written a memoir called Through Gypsy Eyes after another Hendrix song that she inspired. Looking back at their time together, she remembers Jimi not as a superhuman guitarist, just, she says, as a nice bloke.
Kathy Etchingham was talking to Simon Watts, and I can literally remember where I was and what I was doing when I heard the news that Jimi Hendrix had died. For those of us of a certain age, it was one of those moments. Although where I was at school. Hendrix lives on, though, through his music, which remains emblematic of an era, is frequently referenced in modern films and television programmes, and is on many a grown-up playlist. That's it. More insights into figures from history next week. I do hope you'll join me again then. This is Max Pearson. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Without our monthly sustaining members, WNYC might sound like this.
Allison from Flushing, what's your illness?
Hi, doctor. I have a really alarming rash on my legs. My toes are starting to swell.
You should let it heal on its own. Next up, Carlos from Staten Island. You're on Let It Heal on Its Own.
I accidentally cut off my pinky. It is sitting in a bucket of ice.
Definitely let it heal on its own. Next caller.
Great radio needs you. Become a monthly sustaining member. Go to WNYC.org and click on Donate.
WNYC, I'm Lance Lucky. We'll have a slight chance of light rain or snow showers into the early morning and 36 degrees. Becoming partly sunny today, breezy with highs of 42.